Eastern Conference, which teams do you think are the most motivated and possibly the best teams to bet on in the coming weeks? Let's start with you, IC.
The three teams that I think would be nice to focus on, the Rangers, they're in the 8th spot right now in the Eastern Conference, and then Carolina and Toronto are in the 9th and 10th spot. Keep in mind that the Rangers, especially holding on to that last spot, I think they're tied for Buffalo with that last spot. They are 7-3 over the last 10 games. In fact, the Rangers, I don't think, have lost back-to-back games since May 1st through May 3rd. So they're about to reach one full month without losing back-to-back games. Carolina, you can look into as well. They're 6-2 over their last 8. They just come off a nice win over Montreal, who's ranked 6th in the Eastern Conference with a big 6-2 win. Or you can also look at Toronto. They're 4-1 over the last 5. They probably won't make it into the playoffs, but at least they're still trying. So those, the Rangers, Carolina, and Toronto, I think, are all some teams to look into, especially during this late part of the season.
So they've got the motivation. What do you think about this, Dave?
Well, the playoffs are pretty much set where it's just Carolina that's has a shot. I mean, like you said, Toronto is playing hard, and I think they will play hard for the rest of the year for the coach. 7 points is a lot to make up. When you look at this stuff, the best thing I can tell you is you got to look at the schedules. I mean, Carolina just came off 2 big wins. They beat Washington on Wednesday and turn around and beat Montreal, a team that's, like I said before, is struggling. They have some injuries, and that's a team that's falling apart right in front of your eyes. Carolina is at New York and is at Atlanta, and then they have 3 home games left with Detroit, Buffalo, and Tampa Bay. So the 3 better teams that are left on their schedule, they get at home and they get the benefit of that. Whereas Buffalo's at Washington, at Carolina, versus Tampa Bay, versus Philadelphia, and then at Columbus. So I think if they're going to catch somebody, it's going to be tough. I think that what you're looking at right now in the East is how the players are going to shape up.
And would you avoid betting on the teams that probably have no chance at making the playoffs? Or do you still think there might be some value in some teams whose motivations possibly stem from somewhere else? What do you think about this, Dave?
Tonight, Edmonton's in Minnesota, and I am big on motivation, but I also do make a number, and the math has to work out. You basically have 2 teams that are shot, and they look shot. Edmonton has lost 10 games straight, while Minnesota just won for the first time in 9 games the other night in St. Louis in a shootout. But there's no reason that Minnesota should be a 2-10 favorite. Even with Edmonton's young talent, they have three of their talented guys out since the beginning of March. Both times Edmonton was in Minnesota this year, first one being in October, Minnesota was a 55-cent home favorite. And the last time, February 22nd, Edmonton and Minnesota, they were a $1.70 favorite. So here we are at the end of the year with 2 teams, nothing to play for but pride, and you got a 40-cent adjustment by the odds maker of 210. So there's definitely value in Edmonton tonight.
Brilliant. And Indian Cowboy, same to you. Would you think that Minnesota and Edmonton both have motivation, or are there any other teams that you think will have motivation in the upcoming weeks that don't have a chance in the playoffs?
No, I think Dave's analysis as far as Minnesota's and Edmonton's right. As far as, it's so tough, I guess, late in the season because there's so many lineup changes and some new players kind of get an opportunity. But so it's, I try to avoid generally teams that are out of the playoffs this late in the season. This also stems the same for the NBA as well. But having said that, there's always, like Dave said, there's always certain things that you look for, and it kind of becomes handicapper favorites, different situations and trends that you followed for a while, and when those when those situations shape up, it's always useful. Revenge is obviously a big thing. You can take a look at Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay lost, I think it was 8-1 to Pittsburgh early this season. That's a classic situation. And this involves even teams that are both in the playoffs and securely in the playoffs as well. So, it's not just teams that are completely out of the playoffs, sometimes that lack motivation or have motivation, but it's also teams that are completely in the playoffs as well that could have a reason to play well or try to play well and to shape up before the actual playoffs start. So they can be in their best form. There's 2 things that I always look for. I love those. I love the Florida team. I think they kind of go under the radar. When they're a home favorite, typically they're 6-1-2 to the under. But at the same time, when they face teams that have a winning percentage of less than 40%, the over is 6-1-2 as well. So even though they're not going to the playoffs, I always kind of keep an eye on Florida lines as well, just to see how that shapes up, to see if there's any value in them.
team that Florida's playing tonight, Ottawa, is a team that I like. Now I don't necessarily like them tonight, but there is a spot coming Saturday. You know, if Toronto loses tonight in Boston, they're just done, and they're going to head into Ottawa. And Ottawa's a young team that got rid of some players and have played much better. I mean, they've beaten Tampa Bay twice. They've beaten Jersey, I believe, twice in the last month. I mean, they beat Philadelphia in the beginning of March. It's just a team it's a different shape to it. And why the record don't look good, it's a totally different team. It's young kids looking for jobs. They have for the first time in a while, they have a good goalie in Craig Anderson who gives them solid net play. So Ottawa definitely has had some value. And Saturday night, I would definitely look at Ottawa, depending on what Toronto's situation is.
And finally, let's take a look at the Western Conference.